We're recording. All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's do this. All right. Hello, everybody. It's Gina from AetherFlows podcast, and with me today is Sage Gwendolyn. She's awesome. She's super cool. I love I love her. She's got a really good presence on social media. Seriously, she's really good at doing that. That's the first thing I noticed. But also, she has a healing practice. She's a spiritual mentor, an Akashic Record Reader, and she also does mentorships. Her company business healing practice is called Magical Sage, and I've seen a couple of she just has so much wisdom. It's just watch her stuff. Her videos are really great. And I feel like everyone that I've seen, I've been able to directly relate to. And she has really good tips on shadow work and how to manage your energy and how to manage your emotions. And she's great. So anyway, that's Sage. Hi, Sage.
What a beautiful introduction. Thank you. That was so incredibly kind and sweet.
Oh, I love how you are doing like the Instagram and I just because I'm new to that stuff. And so it's a little intimidating for me, but I see like how you are using that to grow your business, and it's really cool. I really like it. So
Thank you.
Like I said, I've seen some of your videos, and just some of the kind of online spiritual people that I have seen kind of put on this presence of my life is great, my life is perfect, follow my teachings because I'm living my best life. And I feel like it's like a lot of it's kind of put on and a little bit curated, and you just seem so just down to earth, and you're just doing life, and I just really relate to the way that you talk and what you talk about. So
Well, thank you. Becoming a content creator and business marketing, that's not something I had a background in. Those are things that I had to teach myself. And when I first started on my journey, I was noticing not only in the spiritual realms, but coaching realms that, like you were saying, there is a social media shroud sometimes that people are wearing of, oh, these are all the wonderful things that are happening in my life, but they don't really talk about the low points or the challenges that they are facing, just like all of us do. And so I made a commitment to not only myself, but communities of, I'm going to show the whole entire thing. Like, I'm going to get on and be crying in my car. That's a lot of videos that I make about shadow work that I'm experiencing, or fear or anxiety or frustrations that I'm having in my personal life or in my business. So people can see, yeah, I have really amazing magical things going on, but then other times I'm really going through it like everybody else. And I have seen that has been a great example for other energy healers and practitioners to really loosen up, and that being vulnerable is not something that is negative. It's actually teaching other people how to be an effective leader, and that emotions are important and they're valuable, especially valuable. Oh my gosh, my words.
Valuable.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Because that's what our biggest blessings are as empaths and light workers, is that we are so hypersensitive. And so let's stop hiding that from everybody. And people want real, they want raw. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to give it to them.
Right.
Yeah. And it has been incredibly healing for me, because I used to have a persona where I was the ice queen. I was very negative. I just would always curate this mask, which, a lot of us have experienced masking, especially neurodivergent.
So I did the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just really trying to present this avatar of myself that wasn't really real. And what ends up happening is you get lost in that. And then it's a arduous journey back to self. And so I said, you know what? We are going to do no filters, no beauty filters. I want to see myself as I am in all phases. I am not going to try and curate this perfect version of myself. Yes, it was for other persons, but it was really for me as well, of learning to love myself at no matter what I am experiencing, highs or lows, challenges or wins, whatever that is. And so I found a lot of success in just existing and being me and then showcasing that to everyone.
Right. Oh, I love that, because that's a lot of what I have been working with myself with starting this channel. It's because my guides told me, they were like, we've talked about this many times, you're supposed to start this channel. And I felt like in the beginning, I felt like I didn't belong because I didn't look like how the reflection that I saw on media of what a spiritual person should look like. And it was it was all ego. It's all the small me. But I did find that it was so healing to just get on here and just talk to really great people, have these like just intense conversations. And I would find myself opening up more and more and being more vulnerable and talking about different aspects of my life and my experience. And then I would rewatch the video and be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was so vulnerable. I can't put this up. I can't. Like, and then eventually just saying like, F it, I'm going to do, who cares? This is as much for you as it is for other people. And the people who want to watch this, it's going to help. So then I did, and I've gotten nothing but positive responses. No one has written to me and been like, oh, you didn't wash your hair this morning, or oh God, you look terrible and you said really stupid things. Like, no one has said that. They've all been like, wow, this has really helped me. And so that, along with my own shadow work and processing the kind of negative belief systems and the patterns that I've inherited, this channel has really helped me personally. So thanks for relating to that, because I mean, you don't hear that from everybody, that they're going through the same stuff as you. So and I feel also that like the people who decide to come on this show they've all been just so authentic, just authentically themselves. And it's been a real honor to be able to talk to everybody. So yeah.
Well, that also makes sense why you're pulling in authentic persons, because you're being authentic, and we pull in whatever we're a frequency match for or whatever we're being. I love that you watch your videos back. So when I have a lot of people that say, oh my gosh, Sage, like you make content so easily. I'm like, yeah, girl, that's after years of practice and teaching myself how to do that and taking communication classes and watching other persons that, like inspire that skill set in me. But I will say in the beginning, for anybody that's listening to this that maybe wants to make content, it was so incredibly difficult for me. I hated the way that I sounded. I hated the way that I looked. I had major social anxiety. I had body dysmorphia. I could not make a video that was longer than like 30 seconds. And I was tripping over my words. And I always felt like I was going to throw up. And I would cry after I made videos. Yeah. And I told myself, this is something that is going to get me to where I want to go. So I'm going to do it anyway. And one of the things that really helped push me over that precipice point of falling in love with myself instead of hating myself was watching every single video back. It was super cringy, and it hurt my soul to do it. But in that process, I started to notice nuances about myself that I had never really highlighted before. And I started getting used to the way I sound and used to the way I look. And then eventually I was like, who cares? Like, this is so healing for me just to come on and speak my truth. And if it helps other people, that's great. I also had some really deep fears of persecution and being judged,
Oh,
which I'm
me
sure not
too.
only come
Yeah.
from this incarnation, but I'm sure, we've probably experienced witch wounds from other incarnations.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And I, just like you said, I have not had anyone that has really gone in on me about anything. It's a story and a narrative that we make up in our head. Yes, have
Yes.
I had some negative comments here and there? Sure, but that's not a reflection on me. That's a reflection on those other persons. Like, I'm not one that's going to go on and put negativity in anybody's comments because I'm minding my own business and I'm happy with myself. So
Right.
even if those happen, I don't take them personally, but it was a huge fear in the beginning.
Yeah, and where do those fears come from? I mean, they come from other lifetimes. They come from, I guess, what 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 you watch on TV when you're like 6 years old, or like I was talking with our friend Kimberly last night about relationships, and I've been married for, oh gosh, what is it, 8 years now or something. We've been together for about 14, and her and I were talking about relationships, and we were talking about these beliefs that we got from watching like John Hughes movies, or like romance movies when we were a kid, and just how distorted and damaging they really are for children. For anyone who kind of inherits these weird beliefs, like the fact that you have to be together all the time. Like, they just kind of foster these really codependent sort of patterns. And yeah, we're like little sponges when we're kids, and we just kind of soak in all of this stuff. And then 20, 30 years later, down the road, you're having a hard time trying to like switch jobs, or it could be something like completely unrelated, and you really sit down and feel into it, and you're like, where does this belief system come from? And it's just like, it's either not yours, it's inherited from down the line, your parents, your bloodlines, or it's like some weird show or something you watched when you were a kid. It's incredible. For me,
Absolutely.
anyway. Yeah. So unwinding that stuff is a huge endeavor, but it will make your life so much better once you start.
Yeah. I had a conversation with my son the other day as we were talking about relationships, and he was making some comments about how I don't have a partner and was kind of curious about that. I'm raising a teenage son, so he said it differently. He said, but anyway, so I said, well, I am focusing on other things in life right now. And I have been single maybe for like 4 or 5 years now, but that's also oh, my camera went off. Okay. When I sat and reflected on that, I said, maybe this is also a generational lesson for him as well, because that's such a deep rhetoric in society that you are not worthy or amount to anything if you do not have a partner, like tying up all your value in that. And so what I was expressing to him is, hey man, I'm taking care of our household and our animals and you and my business and all these things. I don't have to necessarily have a partner to complete me. And maybe that's part of his soul contract is to see a mom that's independent and doesn't necessarily have to have that in her life and this chapter, and that's okay too.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I feel like in the spiritual community also, there's this notion, it's kind of this distorted idea, concept of the twin flame, and how it really feels to me, there is a much deeper esoteric meaning to the twin flame concept. But for a lot of people, like, you see it on social media and stuff, it was kind of bigger maybe a couple of years ago, but it was like this, where's my twin flame readings, twin flame this and that. And I feel like that, as soon as I heard that and like kind of felt into the energy, it felt very kind of distorted and codependent for me. I don't know about what your insights are, but how do you feel about the twin flame thing?
I agree with you on those points. You know, this is just my perspective and experiences. I, uh, a couple years ago, there were, like you said, there was a lot of persons that were like really heavily into that timeline of the twin flame journey. And I don't think that's necessarily negative. I think that your twin flame can be a huge activator in your life and create a lot of rapid growth. However, that's one path that someone can experience. There's many different paths to spiritual healing, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. You don't necessarily have to go that path, and your twin flame does not necessarily have to be a romantic partner either.
I was just going to say that.
It can be your best friend. It can be whomever, and I feel like you can have multiple twin flames in different incarnations. In this one or others. I think that it is a reflection of self that is meant to help you grow and evolve. However, it can become an incredibly codependent trauma wound.
Oh, yes. Trauma bonding. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I mean, the insinuation that I got from watching a lot of this stuff on social media is that like it's another half of your soul and you're not complete until you find this person, and this is, you know, it was just like ick. No, you are whole. You're a whole person, you know. You are a whole being in and of yourself, and that is the most important thing to realize, is that you are whole. You are a fractal of the all that is, and you don't need a partner to realize that. You have to concentrate on yourself, your own spiritual growth. But yeah, definitely I feel like my partnership is a divine complement for sure. And she has helped me grow we've helped each other grow in so many ways. Like I've never met anyone like this person before. And it's not always super pleasant, but it's been like a rapid expansion at times for both of us. So it's been a cool experience. But yeah, I know it's weird. Twin flame. I'm not sure what to think of it. But
I think
let me see.
I think it can be incredibly healing, like you were talking about. It can be incredibly healing and help you just really launch into the next version of yourself. But like you said, it's more about learning sovereignty, irregardless of whom is in your life path.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, gosh, I'll tell you, before I was in this relationship, I was single for about 5 years, and learning how to do life, just basic life, was, you know, on my own, not having any sort of training wheels, was a great experience. I loved it. So it was really fun. And now these days I'm learning how to travel on my own, because I kind of realized, I was like, wait a second, I used to really like traveling. What happened? I haven't gone anywhere in a long time. And I talked to my partner, and she was like, you know, I don't really feel like going on trips. And so I did some shadow work and realized, hey, you can do whatever you want. You don't have to play by these distorted belief system rules that dictate that you have to be together all the time, or you have to, you know what I mean? Like, I am my own sovereign being, and I can go off and do whatever I want. So now I'm planning trips, and I feel like I'm kind of learning how to be whole as a sovereign being while in partnership. And it's very interesting.
I think that's beautiful. I was having some very deep abandonment wounds in my life,
Oh yeah.
and could not be by myself. Like, I always had to be in some type of relationship, or just filling up my plate like as much as I possibly could, because I just really could not be with myself. And then I went through a dark night of the soul, and everything in my life was kind of stripped away, where it was just me and me and my son. And
Yeah.
I went through this time period where I just learned to date myself. And it was one of the most fulfilling things because it really helped me with my confidence and my self concept and my social anxiety, because I had found that in having so many, let's say, friends or relationships, I was utilizing them as a crutch to not step into the bigger version of myself. And when I started going places like myself, like you're talking about traveling or, music festivals or wherever that might be, I interact with my reality completely differently because I'm just in my own energy instead of the influence of other person. So it's really beneficial, and I highly recommend that to people that do want to work on their self-confidence and their concept. Like, get out and go on adventures, like solo adventures. Sometimes it's very healthy to experience.
Yeah, it's crazy. I felt like it was this part of me that I had kind of put away in this sort of like, the saying that like relationships are all about compromise, which is total BS.
Mm-hmm.
I felt, and I did this to myself. I had no one else telling me like, oh, you need to do this. It was all me. I felt like I had to put part of myself away in order to be in this partnership. And like my partner had nothing to do with it. It was all me. So unpacking this stuff and kind of realizing that I had done this and forgiving myself and kind of like doing the shadow work and transmuting all that, all the icky stuff, all the ego telling you, not that the ego is icky, it's just a part of yourself that is trying to protect you, kind of telling your ego that it's okay. You can come out as yourself. You can be yourself. I think that's been my journey the past few years, is like discovering who the heck I am, because I feel like I had no idea for at least half my life. Like, who am I? What do I like to do? What are my preferences? I feel like I've kind of been this like empty Gatorade bottle floating in the ocean for a large part of my life. And so it's been really fun to figure this out, and not figure it out, but like feel into it and discover who I am and what I like to do. So it's been, and it really has evolved my relationship as well. It's really kind of helped my partner as well start to embark on her own journey of like, what does she really like? I feel like the both of us we were kind of on autopilot for a few years until 2020. And then that kind of just, blew everything up, and we had a lot of time to think. So it's been really fun watching each other kind of grow and evolve. And it hasn't been fun 100% of the time. Like, some of it's been really painful, but in the end, it's been just amazing for our relationship to rediscover ourselves, and to, it's not like it's like a different level of the relationship, I guess. So I don't know why I'm talking about my relationship
I
on
think that's
this
great.
interview.
I think it is evidential of when you meet
Yeah.
somebody and you're both on a growth train with one another. You can even be at different phases and into different things, but as long as you're both headed in forward momentum, it's a great experience to have with another person.
Yeah, definitely. That was another thing I saw on like YouTube a couple of years back, was like a lot of spiritual teachers were talking about, if you didn't have the same frequency as your partner or a person in your life, that you should just leave, just kind of dip out. And yeah, that I felt like that didn't really resonate with me, because I mean, we would all just be leaving each other all the time because we're all switching frequencies at all times. But I did kind of go through a dark night of the soul with my partner, and thinking, there were a few times where I'm like, is this even going to work out? Am I growing too fast for this person? And in the end, it's all just stories you tell yourself. So
Yeah,
If you just let go and let it happen, it's like this natural kind of coming together and separating and coming together and separating. And yeah, it ebbs and flows.
I don't really like help people with relationships so much because of the whole twin flame thing. That's just not really my wheelhouse and what I enjoy. I like helping people with things. However, I have found that in talking to clients that are having relationships things going on, and they are very witchy woo-woo and metaphysical, like they're very deep into spirituality. A lot of times they will have partners that are not in the same chapter of their life. And the issue that I have found is oftentimes you are putting so much pressure on your partner to be that person in your life when they don't have to be. You can go find soul tribe members and friends that will fill that magic cup in you. It does not have to be your partner, because maybe your partner is the one that's keeping you grounded in the 3D. Like
I love that you're saying this.
Yeah, they need to be that way. My son, his father, we're not together anymore, but his father is very like 3D, very, very open-minded now, and you know, great co-parents. Okay. But he's very more 3D, and I'm very in the ethers. Okay. So our son, like, I can see why we ended up with one another, because he needs parents on both spectrums. Because if it was just me, too much. If it was just his dad, too much one way or the other.
Right.
So like, sometimes your partner is okay for them to be the grounding, you know, force in your life. But it is important to go find your communities outside of your partnerships then. Because when you are pressurizing your partner so much to evolve into a version of themselves that they're not ready for yet, it's actually going to make them retract even more, because we're holding these like very high expectations and asking them to change who they are. We can never change anybody. We can only change ourselves. The things around us change, but we have to back it up a little bit off of them sometimes so we don't, you know, negatively influence our dynamic.
It's like you're sabotaging things by putting too much pressure on yourself, and then energetically putting too much pressure on them, and you're just kind of like blowing the whole thing up because you're trying to control the situation, you know. And instead you can just love this person for who they are and let them have their own journey, let them have their own process. And for me, because I've done it both, I've done, you know, trying to control the other person and fretting and ruminating about like, am I going to ascend faster than this other person? Like all this, like, you know, it's all part of like figuring out what your truth is and using your discernment. But when you're new to this process, you don't really know where to turn. And so you're kind of just like feeling around and watching stuff on YouTube. And it's really cool. It was really cool for me because it really strengthened my belief system after I figured out what my belief system was. But yeah, you just like, I was putting so much pressure on my partner and causing friction by worrying about this. And after a while, I was just like, you know what? We're together for a reason, and I'm just gonna like let this go and see what happens. And she has had so much expansion since then. Like she's going off on her own journeys and getting into metaphysics and energy, and like, yeah, it's beautiful to watch. If you can just let go, like just loosen the grip, you'll be amazed at what you'll see.
Yeah, I agree. Because now you're coming in with exploratory energy, allowing them to be themselves instead of trying to control the situation. I've had to see that with my son. He, you know, he's spiritual in his own ways, but he has different belief systems than I do. And at the beginning stages of my journey, I was really trying to have an influence on him of, oh, well, you know, here's all these other metaphysical concepts. And then I just realized one day that was just making things worse. I just needed to really allow him to be himself, because it's not my job to, you know, mold him into something. He needs to figure that out on his own. Yes, I'm his mom, but at the same time, he has his own soul contract and his own independence. I can just stay open If you've got questions, I am here. I am going to live my life however I want to. And then if you want to catch this vibe, like we can do that together, but I don't have to, necessarily force that, because that's how I was raised. I was raised in a very religious household, and it was very oppressive. And I don't want to do that to others. So I never try and, force my ideologies on people. I'm just like, this is what I got going on over here. If you got questions, you know where to find me.
Yeah. I love that. Man, I feel like that's such a better approach, especially as kids get older, because I remember being a teenager and my mom wasn't necessarily very outwardly controlling, but there was so much fighting in the household, especially as I turned into a teenager, about different beliefs. And she was very religious, but kind of rebelled against the religion. She kind of bounced around from different religions and she is very much a searcher. And so, there was a lot of control issues going on in the household. And I feel like I said, if you can just loosen the grip and let the person grow, you're going to have a much cooler experience, I think.
I think so too. I think we fret because we love these persons very much, or these persons love us very much, and we want to make sure that they're on their highest path in whatever frameworks that is for that person, right? But at the same time, I feel that when we are being controlling, it's taking sovereignty from that other person. Like, we feel that they're not going to be able to land on their own 2 feet, when we got to give them more grace. Like, you're going to figure it out. Okay.
Yeah, more trust, more grace, for sure. I was wanting to talk to you about, we'll switch gears a little bit here. Let's talk about your healing practice. Let's talk about what's an Akashic Record Reader. How does that work?
For the Akashic Records, I really see it as a modality that helps you step outside of yourself. It's almost like going to see a friend or a therapist or an energy healer. When you're in your own situation, it's very hard to get clarity, because we're the ones that created the circumstances in the first place. So if you're coming at it in the same lens, you're just going to get the same thing. And that's why people get really stuck. And so the Akashic Records can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, because it's a vast umbrella. It's really just the ethers and the encodements of everything that has happened across time, space, and all dimensions. So depending on the practitioner, it might be different flavors of the records that you get. So what I help people with really is learning how to connect to their inner children, their higher self, their different incarnations or past lives. I'm really into helping people figure out what archetypes are right now. I'm doubling down on that in my business, because we all have these really mystical and magical, versions of ourselves, our multidimensional forms, but we've been cut off from that for various reasons, religious, society, culture, government, programming, all things, or persecution fears, which ones. And in working with archetypes, those are characters that hold certain personality traits, like the magician or the wizard or the sorceress, the empress, all these different characters. It really helps you ground into your magic on a day-to-day basis when the 3D is kind of throwing you around and you forget how magical you are, or what you actually have access to. I know we were talking about that before we started recording. They're like reminders of, oh yeah, I carry these energetics within me as well. And sometimes it is beneficial to look at an outside source for that reminder. That is okay. It doesn't mean that you're not sovereign. Just everybody needs reminders, because being a human can be very dense. It can be very arduous, right? And so that is what I'm focusing on currently. But I also help people with their spiritual businesses, as far as learning entrepreneurial skills, because that's not something that always comes natural to energy healers. Like, that stuff's easy, healing folks. But marketing and creating content and business structures like creating a website or booking sites. That's a little bit more skills that have to be learned over time. So helping people with that. I'm really big on connecting people with magical creatures like unicorns and dragons and fairies, and just helping people experience a more whimsical life that's a lot lighter and more enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's part of the reason why I started this channel, was because I was kind of connected to different groups, like different spiritual groups of people who, some of them were more of like your what you're speaking of, like very magical. Like I'm connected to the fairies and the dragons and the unicorns, and I'm more having I'm having like a more magical kind of experience. I'm seeing like all the different stuff in my life shift. And then some other people who are really kind of more focused on the external and kind of like politics and world events. And I kind of wanted to be more of a bridge for these different communities so that people can kind of remember that not everything is the external sort of doom and gloom. Like there's so much more happening than we have awareness of. And yeah, so I love that you're doing that. That's great that you're connecting people to their unicorns and their dragons and their fairies and stuff. Yeah.
So I think it's important, like you said, to be that role of a bridge, because there's something to be said about being multidimensional, but also human, because that's the experience that we're living. So both are, important. And I think that's one of the reasons that I went into psychology and working in the mental health fields before I got into spiritualism. And
I didn't know that about you.
Yes, I love psychology. I love psychology, philosophy, sociology. Those are all things that I studied prior to what I do now. And I think that gave me some really good frameworks about how to funnel magic into applicable, tangible ways to benefit your life. Because being in your imagination and being exploratory and learning about different, past lives and magical creatures and beings, like that's all well and good. But sometimes it's, how's that helping me right now though?
Yeah, you kind of have to ground it in. You have to integrate it. Because otherwise you'll just be floating around, Yeah. Yeah. So what did you do before your healing practice?
So let's go all the way back. So before that, I worked in the restaurant industry, much like yourself. I know you had mentioned that previously. And then I owned a doggy daycare for 7 years. So took care of
a doggy daycare for a couple of years.
Oh, did you? Oh, nice. Yep. Okay, dog lovers.
Sure, I loved it.
Yeah, it was awesome. So I had that for 7 years. I was a bar manager for a while. I worked at a nonprofit with underserved youth and ran a STEM program there in the school system. And then got into my spiritual business. So I've done a lot of different things. Lots of different things. I
so cool.
I just kind of go wherever my soul is pulling me towards at the time.
Yeah. So you had some business background. Did you go do any like business schooling or anything like that?
I didn't necessarily do business schooling. It was kind of more just figure it out as you go. I didn't know anything when I started the doggy daycare. I didn't know anything at all.
Really?
It was just more figuring it out. I am the type of person that if you give me something to figure out, I will do it. It may not be the easiest journey, and it wasn't. For the first years, it was a struggle. It was a real struggle for the first couple of years. But then eventually, learning and just keeping at it, finally had a lot of success in that endeavor. And I'm really blessed for that, because I was able to take all of those skill sets that I learned and take them into the spiritual business.
Yeah, totally. Because you have to learn how to promote yourself, and you have to learn the nitty gritty of it, like the tax
yeah.
brackets and all that good stuff.
Yeah,
That's a
absolutely.
lot.
Yeah.
Wow. That is so cool. So you do a business, it's like spiritual business mentorship?
I do, yeah. So again, the energy healing is a lot easier for persons to get into because it's just natural for us. A lot of us have been doing that
Oh,
for
yeah.
multitudes of incarnations. You like give
Right.
somebody a modality and then they're off to the races with it. But then like, how do I actually get clients? How do I build a
Yeah.
successful business? How do I market? How do I make content? And it's not just about the tangible entrepreneurial skill sets. It's also about your self concept and your money mindset and your
Yep.
confidence and speaking with
So
authority
much.
and communicating and articulating what you're able to do. And it's also about copywriting. There's a million different
Copywriting.
yeah, copywriting where you like write emails and you learn how to effectively speak to people about what your messaging is.
Okay.
Yes, and so that's something that I have had to teach myself as well. So I think the reason that I did not have a lot of these skill sets is so that I could learn them on a very deep level in order to teach other people. It's almost kind of like a trial by fire of, okay, well, higher self said we got to figure all these things out because one day there's going to be a lot of people asking how to do these things. And the reason I wanted to say that is because there are a lot of people that don't have those skills, and it seems like it's a very overstimulating journey to go on. But I will say, just take it one day at a time. I didn't know any of that stuff. YouTube University. And that is literally how I figured all those things out.
Totally.
Yeah.
My little brother told me he learned how to like build a house on YouTube. Basically, he's so handy. Yeah, he's like automotive guy. He bought a little house and like refurbished the whole thing and renovated it. And I was like, how did you learn how to do this stuff? He's like, YouTube. Seriously, everything. So yeah, it's a great resource. But yeah, I mean, there's so many people out there, myself included, who we know what we're here to do. We know what we enjoy doing, but it's like grounding that in and applying it to your everyday life can seem very very overwhelming. Like, how do you set up a business? How do you learn how to do this stuff? So that's great. I love that you're doing these classes or mentorships. How long is the mentorship?
I have a 4-month private mentorship that I do, and this is for persons that really feel a calling in their soul of being a leader in the spiritual realms. Like they are here to teach people how to reconnect with that ancient magic within and how to be a leader in teaching people these concepts that have been lost in society of being compassionate and being empathetic and supporting one another in a collective manner instead of us being so individualistic. And that's where a lot of our societal anxiety and depression has come from. Or having to hide yourself and not be authentic and express yourself in the ways that you need to. So my goal is to help leaders become bigger leaders, to help them get on a bigger stage, because there is a lot of fear around being kind of that mama bird hen to these little baby chicks, right? Of what if
100%. I'm definitely feeling that.
Yeah, you can probably feel them onboarding right now. Like that's a big a big pool that we feel of. I know that I'm supposed to be leading a certain group of souls, but it's scary to step into that role.
It really is. It really is, especially when you've gone half of your life just kind of with like a either low self-esteem, low self-confidence, low self-image, or you're just kind of going on autopilot, just not really thinking much about your life at all. And then all of a sudden you embark on this conscious awareness journey, and you discover that you're kind of a big deal, that you are here to not influence, but you're here to be a spiritual teacher, a leader of some sort. And just processing that alone can be very transformative, I'll say. Because I mean, I've heard it from several people, and I've heard it from my guides, I've heard it from my teams. Like, I am supposed to do these enormous things, and it's like you go from I think that's like the main theme of this incarnation for me. Like, I'm a Scorpio, so it's all about rebirth, death, transformation. I am here to experience like huge transformations. So processing that on a logical level is one thing, but like you said, grounding it in and learning how to do this, and building the confidence within yourself to like really truly emanate that, like, I am a leader. I'm here to do like really big things. It's a huge thing. And so it's good to have help. You can't do it alone. You can't just lone wolf it.
Oh yeah, that has been a really big lesson for me in the last couple of years of healing a hyper independence wound. I think
Yeah.
from just having low self-worth and low self-esteem, and then my grandparents who raised me had very high expectations of me, which put high expectations on myself. And so I was just pushing myself of, I can do it alone. I have to do it alone. Like, I have to prove to, you know, the world, or really myself, that I'm capable of doing this. And honestly, it's not fun to do that. It is very exhausting. It leads to burnouts. It does not help you grow because you're in your own perspectives. Like, there you only have such pool of knowledge. Like, we need to be in communities. That's the way that we're meant to be.
Exactly.
And collaborating with other persons. And so that is something I've been working on the last couple of years of continuously expanding my network, because it's just more fun to do things with your witchy woo woo friends. And I didn't have any at the beginning. And I will say that for people that are listening of like, well, I don't know anybody. I didn't know anybody either. I'm doing much, or I did much like what you're doing right now of, okay, since I don't know anybody, what is a way that I could get to know people? I'm going to start a podcast and I'm going to interview people.
Right.
And that's where I found a lot of my friends. But that took a huge leap of faith in working through a lot of fears in order to do that, which I'm sure you've had to work through as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, currently still, you know, it's never ending. Yeah. I feel like the lone wolf archetype, or what, you know, whatever you want to call it, it's so self-punishing, and it just perpetuates this shame, I think, deep down, shame that you can't, you feel like you can't do it yourself, or you can't tell other people, you can't be vulnerable enough with other people to ask for help. And so you're ashamed of it. And so you try to go it alone, and you just punish yourself. It's just this like this like spiral of just like, well, I have to do it. I have to do this. I have to do this thing. And then the other part of you is like, but you can't do this. And it's just, man, it, like you said, you just burn out, you just spin your wheels out. And finally you're just like, I'm done. I give up. I surrender. And then, I mean, that's been my journey anyway. I kind of just like was banging my head up against a wall until I decided to listen, and really reaching out to other people. It's really fun. Like, it's scary at first, and you have to put yourself out there and make yourself vulnerable, but the right people will find you. You'll find the right people, you know, which isn't always the idea that you have of like who your community is. It's not always what your perception is. But yeah, if you open yourself up and put that vibe out to the universe that like, I want community, I want high vibe tribe, I want, you know, I want to step more fully into my purpose, like, it'll happen for sure. It's happened with me. I've noticed like amazing stuff happen. You know, I've met some people who are really good friends of mine now, and they just randomly wrote to me on Instagram, which I mean, it's pretty incredible. that you can meet people from across the planet and just connect with them like that randomly. So,
yeah. 2 of my clients that I had like years ago ended up being the closest people to me in my life, like my soul tribe members. And we're still friends to this day. And I wouldn't have met them unless I got over that fear of, supporting other people in the way that my soul was asking me to. And I met them through that. And so, I wouldn't have thought that I would have gotten friends that way, but I did.
That's so cool. I love that. Oh, boy. Here, let me see. Do I have any more questions? I think we've pretty much answered all of them. Yeah. Well, that's it. I guess we're done.
Okay.
I'm just joking. What else would you like to talk about, Sage?
I was thinking beforehand, maybe we could talk about the importance of inner child healing. I know that's something that you had expressed that you're really getting into, and that is one thing that I will talk about all the live long day and about everything. From what I have found in my experience, 90% of what people are experiencing as far as anxiety, depression, trauma, challenges in their lives, blocks, whatever it might be, is all coming from childhood. Even if it doesn't seem that way, if it's something that has happened in your adult experience, the reason that happened in your adult experience is because of your programming and conditioning in childhood.
Yes. Yes,
that is
absolutely. Let's talk about it.
Yes. When I am hosting sessions with persons, I can always track back where that started. Because I know that that's where the root of it is coming from. It is something you experience from a teacher or a caretaker, your parents, or something that happened with your friends. It really molds the way that you experience yourself and experience life. And I think a lot of people don't really always take the time to do that depth of work. And sometimes people aren't on that journey yet. And that's fine. I didn't do inner child healing until, the last couple of years. But I have found that that is where you will experience the most amount of growth, because you are getting to the root of it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like when you finally connect to your inner child, it's visceral. Like gosh, I remember just crying my heart out, doing this shadow work, particularly with the inner child. And just the transformation that I've seen. I remember one of the first times I ever communicated with my inner child, and just watching this transformation happen, where in my inner sight, I saw this kid, and they were just like laying on the floor in a fetal position. And through like this conversation that I had with this kid, who was me, I saw them kind of energetically like get up and like stand up and start to like glow. And it was amazing. It was amazing to see this and to like foster this kind of parent-child relationship with yourself is truly transformative. It's been amazing for me. I'm still on it, of course, and I don't always listen, but I'm learning. I'm learning how to communicate with my body. I'm learning how to communicate with my inner child. And it changes your life. Like, it changes your health. It changes your exterior environment, your situations. Like, stuff starts to change once you do this work. And your life really does get easier and kind of more fun,
It does. It can really liberate you from a lot of pain to support them as that parent and caretaker or mentor, like you're speaking about. And a lot of times people will say, how did you learn how to connect to past lives or different incarnations? I actually taught myself to do that via inner child healing. That is the route that I took in order to learn that modality. So when I started healing my inner children, I, at that time, was trying to talk to my higher self. When I first started learning about that concept, I could not hear her at all. And that's also because I had a lot of mistrust in myself and, just, again, unworthiness and all these different things. Okay. So I said, well, if I cannot hear my higher self, I am going to teach myself how to be a higher self to my inner children. I'm going to work backwards instead. And in doing that, I opened up the lines of communication to my higher self, because now I understand that concept, because I have practiced it. So I know what that feels like. I know what it feels like to speak to someone in a mentorship role. And now I can hear her doing that to me. And so with the inner children, I realized that I wasn't just healing a memory. I was actually timeline jumping into those experiences to talk to their consciousness and their time and space, and speaking to them as if it is a different person, because it is. They have a completely different framework and understandings of things. They're literally 5 or 7 or 10.
It's like a time capsule almost.
Yeah, exactly. Like I call it like an energetic like vortex that you have like in your Akashic records. And so in doing that, I realized, oh, it's really easy to actually connect to past lives now, because I taught myself that system of how to talk to them in real time, instead of doing necessarily past life regression, where you're just kind of secondhand viewing the experience. No, I'm actually in there talking to those different timelines, because I did it with my inner children. And it's easier to do that because your past lives, I call them different incarnations, but your past lives, that's so non-relative to your now experience. That's like, those are people you've never met before.
They're just echoes.
Yeah, you've never met them. You don't know what they're like, their personality traits. I mean, they are you, but they're a different version of you. But you know who you do know is your inner children. You have tangible memories with them, so it's way easier to access and timeline jump to them than it is a past life. But once you learn that frequency and you do it a couple times, it's the exact same thing. It's so easy to do that.
Interesting. That's so interesting. I've noticed that most of my my like social anxiety related fears, fears of being seen and heard, come from my teenager, actually. Oh, and this like defeatist sort of like, well, F it. I'll probably just fail anyway. Like that sort of stuff comes from my teenager. And so she's a little bit more, I have more discussions with her. It's more like energetic with my inner children, just, sending them love and like telling them that it's okay to express themselves. But with my teenager, I get into these like more discussions about how it's okay to try something and fail. Because and being perfectionist, that's just more of that kind of control, lack of self-confidence energy. And so it's okay to fail. But yeah, it's really interesting to have these different interactions with different ages of your inner children, because they are like time capsules. It's like what you experienced at that time gets, I don't know, manifested in your field somehow, and it just kind of stays as this energy. And if you don't transmute by understanding and by opening up and listening to what they have to say, it's just going to be another perpetuating sort of loop in your life, whatever whether it's like low self-confidence, lack of belief in yourself, or just like, oh, why should I bother? Everything I do fails anyway, that sort of stuff. If you don't work with your inner children, it kind of just continues. So I feel like it's super important to work with your inner children.
I agree. I think a lot of people get tripped up with inner child or teen healing because you are trying to Sherlock Holmes yourself with your logical and analytical mind, especially us, empaths and light workers. We're very self-aware as it is. Okay, very self-aware, always doing discovery within self. However, when you are talking to your inner children, you cannot talk to them like an adult. You need to talk to them like a 5-year-old. You need to talk to them like a 10, 12, 15-year-old, because that is where their level of consciousness is. And it's so much easier of a process when you do that, because they're not overcomplicating things. They're just feeling how they feel and thinking how they think. We're the ones that are making it this convoluted situation. They just want to hug. They just want
Yeah.
you to tell them you're safe. I'm proud of you. You're special. They want you to hype them up. Like it's very simple once you take all of the adulting out of it. So that's why I always recommend like just literally like with your teen, like, hey, and I do this with mine sometimes. I'll be like, hey, let's go to a coffee shop, let's go to the mall, you know, in my imagination. Like, girl, tell me what's going on. Like
Oh,
just really just like let go. Tell me all the things that you
okay.
hate. Tell me the things that are frustrating. You can scream as loud as you want here or curse or whatever you want to do.
Mhm.
Nobody's going to get upset, right? And just, you know, exude all that energy out. And okay, how do you feel now? Usually they feel a lot better because they just want to feel seen and
Yeah.
heard because they weren't.
Right.
They weren't, or they
Yeah.
were made to feel small or insignificant or something's wrong with them because they're so hypersensitive. Well, the best things that we can do is just be like, girl, tell me what's going on. Okay.
Right.
Love you anyway. That's great. And give some
What?
advice.
Okay. I have a question.
Yeah.
How can people start to work with their inner children if they have the obstacle of like not being able to hear or not being able to see as much? Like, can they work more on a feeling basis with their inner children?
Okay, so if somebody has no experience with inner child healing, I would not try and do trauma healing at first.
Okay.
There is no inner child that wants to meet you for the first time and you're trying to uproot all of this heavy, depressing, anxiety things and telling them like, oh, this is what's wrong with us in my life, like that. Ew. Okay, so
Yeah.
how I started with it was I also could not hear. I could not hear my higher self. I could not hear my inner children. It felt very silly to just be talking to these small versions of me inside. Like, I don't know if they can hear me or not. So I
Right.
started hanging out with them without being able to hear them first. So there's this woman on YouTube. She has a channel called New Horizons, and she has guided meditation for children, like external children. I used to do them with my son.
Mm-hmm.
But because I had such a fear of etheric and astral work because of programming, I said, you know what? How about I just go have some fun journeys with my children in my imagination? I'm just going to go listen to some guided meditations and ask them to come along on the journey with me, and we're going to have fun. And I'm going to do some really great activities. Like I'm going to go do chalk art. I'm going to color. I'm going to start watching anime and watching cartoons. Even if I can't hear you, I know you're in there. And what we're doing right now is building trust and communication. And the more that I did that, the more I started to hear them. They wanted to speak up. And then they started showing me things because they trusted me. They started showing me memories. They started telling me things that they were upset about, or, you know, behavioral patterns or triggers or traumas that we have experienced. Having fun with them in the beginning is actually what opened up those lines of communication, because you have to imagine they're in there and they're probably very nervous and very scared because trauma hurts to experience. Like it is very intense. It is very visceral. Well, let's start building communication or trust first. Like let's just do some things. And if you say, I don't know what I like to do in childhood, because a lot of us don't remember what those things are. A lot of us have like blank memories. What do you wish you could have done? That's a great place to start.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of us that did not have certain things available to us. And those don't always have to be external things. I would go and take my inner children to an amusement park or to a zoo in my mind and just get to know them and ask them questions about themselves. What's your favorite color? What's your favorite movie? It doesn't always have to be scary. Inner child healing seems very intense. Having fun with your inner children is just as healing, because a lot of us did not have fun in childhood. And that's what we're trying to bring forward anyway. Like there will be a time and place to do the more intensive work, but having fun is healing.
Yeah,
feeling
that's
safe.
so true.
Yeah, feeling safe is healing. Right?
Yeah. For sure. And just like even just setting that intention that I'm going to do this to connect with my inner child. And then you could think of like, what was your favorite TV show when you were a kid? Like, man, I rewatched all the Sesame Street episodes. I rewatched Fraggle Rock and the Muppet Show because I loved that stuff when I was a kid. And I mean, I did anyway. You can feel like a little spark, kind of just like, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh, I remember that. And when that happened in that episode, doing stuff like that. And like you said, like you could do like mind meditation journeys in your mind, or you could actually go to a park and like play in the grass, or and it might feel silly at first, but it's like you set that intention, and that intention is pure, and like this is a positive intention. It's going to happen, and it's going to grow, and you're going to foster a relationship with your inner child, and that's really going to help. Because I mean, I still don't hear a whole lot. I mean, it's very quiet. You have to be so quiet to listen, and it sounds like yourself at first. So a lot of people, myself included, when I first started hearing like clairaudiently, it really did just sound like myself, and it was very easy to kind of push it aside and be like, oh, that was just my own mind. But that's who you're talking to. You really are just talking to your subconscious and other aspects of yourself. So don't just throw that away either. Like, listen to what's being said, and yeah, it'll just snowball. You'll just hear more and more eventually. But just setting that intention is super huge. So I love that. I love that you went to like amusement parks in your mind. That's so cool.
I think that a lot of us have experienced feeling not included, whether that is by our families or friends or society. We're just the oddballs, the rainbow sheep, as I like to call them. So how healing is it for you to say to your inner children, even if you can't hear them, I want to hang out with you. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to discover like these things about you. Like I love you. Like I want to be with you, right? Like that is incredibly healing. Something that 2 pieces of advice that I would give as well is when I first started channeling, it all sounded like me. I was like, oh, I'm just making this up, right? And it was kind of disconcerting. And so I asked my higher self, inner children, and spirit team, I said, y'all all need to talk to me in a different personality. You need to talk to me on different levels of consciousness so I can differentiate. So different tones, different vibes, right? So my inner children started talking to me like a child would, instead of me coming in with my adult mind. And then my higher self would come in and speak from this very like lofty, like guru type of like energy, like ethereal energy, right? I found that was really beneficial. Like, I actually need you to talk to me like a 5-year-old. I need you to talk to me like a 15-year-old.
Yeah, that's helpful for sure. Yeah. I notice when I'm doing that work that I will hear different tones in different ears, or I'll feel the frequency change a little bit. Like if you feel coldness, or if you feel like a little tingly, or even just like you can feel like a lifting up sort of energy, like you're getting pulled up just a little bit. That's another. Those are other signs that you're talking to other aspects. So there's so much. Yeah, there's so many different, very subtle signs that you're talking to your other aspects. But yeah, I should do that. I should ask them to talk like little kids. That would be helpful. Because for me right now, it does sound like I'm just talking to myself. And so, yeah, I'll do that for sure.
Yeah. I have one more piece of advice, if you still have time.
Oh yeah, we're at 1 hour and 8 minutes. Can you believe it?
Yes. I've been having fun chatting. So
yeah, I have time. Let's talk.
Great. When I am helping people with certain trauma wounds or challenges, let's take imposter syndrome. So imposter syndrome, you can experience that at a lot of different points in your life. It can be 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, all the way up until however old you are. Okay. So every single one of those different age points is going to interpret imposter syndrome differently. And you're going to need a different toolkit for each one of them. Right. And that seems very daunting. Okay. So
Yeah, it
what I
does.
tell people instead, when you go into meditation, ask yourself, how far back can I remember that I have an imposter syndrome wound? Maybe that's still you as an adult, or maybe it's 10, 5 years old. Is there a memory attached to that? What happened to actually create this imposter syndrome? So let's say that you have a 5-year-old that says, oh, mom said something to me. Okay. So what I would do is go in meditation and say, hey, my name is Sage. If you haven't met me yet, I am your higher self. I'm coming in here to have a conversation with you. And I always like to ask them if they want to meet somewhere. Where do they want to meet where they feel safe? And they'll pick a park, or they'll pick your childhood home, or they'll pick Unicorn Land, wherever that is for them, or you create a place for them, right? Because where people get tripped up in doing astral work is you're starting off in the dark. Well, that's scary for you and your inner child. Nobody wants to be in the dark. So we need to pick somewhere to meet them. That's like fun, okay, and inviting. And then literally I will sit on the ground in meditation with them. I'll say, hey, let's sit on the ground because that feels very centering. And I'll say, hey, do you want to go by Sage, or do you want to go by a different name? Do you have a nickname? Sometimes they like to differentiate between you and them, or you had a childhood nickname. And I'll say, how old are you? How are you feeling? I heard that you're experiencing imposter syndrome. What does that mean to you? Why are you feeling that way? What happened? Tell me about it. Literally just talking to them like a little 5-year-old.
Okay.
Ask them what they want to wear. Making it as a visceral experience as possible, and telling them, hey, we don't have to necessarily talk about the trauma. I just want to talk about your feelings, or whatever else you want to talk about. And what ends up happening is they will just start telling you things because they've been holding it in for years and years and years. But there's a disconnect that people have of just going in meditation and waiting for something to happen, or just kind of throwing a question out there and not getting a response. You got to make it as imagery depth level that you can. And there are some persons that do not see mental images. I don't see anything in my mind. I actually feel images instead of seeing them. So it's a blank screen up here. And the reason that I want to say that is because there are a lot of persons that don't have that ability, and that's fine. It won't keep you.
I'm like that too. I can, sometimes I can, it's almost like looking at, when I close my eyes, it's like a staticky sort of blank screen. And sometimes when like different energies come in, they kind of like pop out. It's almost like a 3D sort of image, but then they kind of like go back. So, and I've noticed that it depends on day to day too. Like sometimes your energies are stronger, and different situations. That's interesting though, that you can feel it. I'm totally going to work with that. That's really cool. Like, how does it feel? Do you just feel like more of a vibration, or?
Yeah, it would be almost like if you and I were sitting in a room together and I closed my eyes, I can still feel you next to me, even though I cannot see you. I can still feel your energy, right? Or I can feel what an apple feels like instead of actually seeing it. Right? Like, and still know, it's an apple. It's kind of hard to explain if you don't have that gift necessarily, but it's just reading into the energetic vibrations of things instead of actually using sight for it. Yeah, and the reason I wanted to say that is because that does trip some people up. It's called aphantasia, where you don't see mental images. And my spirit team, for people that are listening to this that have that, said, stop saying you have that, because it's making it worse. You can just
stop saying you have.
They have aphantasia, because now we're speaking something and concreting it into our experience. Maybe instead we say, I'm working on seeing images. And when I started doing that, I did start to see more instead of seeing nothing at all.
Okay. Interesting. Huh. Well, I don't know what I have or what I don't have, but I do know that I'll see flashes in my mind's eye, and sometimes like I was saying, I can see like little things pop in and out. but yeah, for the most part, I'm a feeler. I'm more of a feeler, so I can definitely feel when stuff comes in, and like, you know, like see the sparkles at the corners of your eye and whatnot. But yeah, work with what you got. So yeah, I'll definitely do that. That's so cool because like a lot of people get kind of intimidated when they're like, all right, now conjure up this image of Candyland or whatever, and it's like I'm not really seeing anything. But if you can just feel into it, that makes it easier.
Yeah, utilize your empathic abilities. All of us that are listening to this right now, all empaths. Okay, so use your gift of feeling. And I was having a difficult time starting off in those places like we talked about as well, whether it's an amusement park, a zoo, you know, wherever. Go look at a picture on Google beforehand, or go watch a video beforehand and like imprint it into your subconscious, and then it'll be easier to feel your way through it once you're in there. I will go look at magical fantasy pictures on Pinterest before I go do these experiences, and it just really helps you immerse yourself in it. Or I'll go listen to adventure music, questing music on YouTube to make it like a whole, you know, fun experience. If you can just make it as vivid and imagery filled, it's going to be more fun for you and your inner child, because they're going to be like, oh, this is exploratory, like this isn't scary, this is fun. Right? So you've got to create that container for them, and then it's going to be easier for you both to communicate with one another.
Okay, awesome. Oh my goodness, that's so much information. Thank you, Sage.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'll put all of your information in the description, and yeah, I encourage people to reach out to you if they want to do some inner child healing or learn more about their gifts. Maybe learn a bit more about your past lives and how that kind of impacts your current life. Yeah, dude, I had so much. This has been a really cool conversation. Yeah, that's awesome. I also, if you guys really like this video, you can go to Sage's. You don't have a YouTube page, do you? A YouTube
I do. It's under Magic with Sage.
Okay. Yeah, she's got YouTube, Instagram. Do you have TikTok as well?
Yep, TikTok, Facebook. You can find me at Magic with Sage across all the socials.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll put that information up if you guys want to check her out. And I'm going to stop the video. So I hope you guys enjoyed our conversation. And if you'd like to like and subscribe, that would be really cool. It helps the algorithm. It helps bring this information out to people. So that's it. I'm going to turn it off. Bye, guys. I never know how to end these. Bye, guys.
No.